Personally, I've always been a big fan of history, big fan of understanding just people's narratives and how whatever problem you have, there's examples of someone in history overcoming even worse obstacles. So that was always inspirational to me. I guess the awakening point when I got to college was I would have conversations with friends where we would just complain a lot about things that we didn't like, about things that we felt could change, about things that we felt could be better, whether it was the streets or the schools or just the overall images that we saw. And then we got to the point where we were like, instead of talking about it, let's do something, try to insert ourselves into this conversation instead of just being observers from a distance. We were inspired by the stories in history where we saw examples of people who dealt with issues where they couldn't complain, they had to respond. Just watching what other people were doing and seeing that other young people around the globe in history were the ones who were like the ones stepping up and saying, all right, we're gonna do something to make this better. We started doing all this responsive work before Katrina. We were like talking about issues that we felt was important to us, but a lot of these issues were really like just theories that we heard or we witnessed or that we observed from reading or looking at, you know, news articles and stuff. After Katrina, all these theories became real. They all became stuff that we saw firsthand. You know what I mean? We saw firsthand what it looked like to be neglected, what it looked like to see poverty exposed. So we had this responsibility always as we created. I'm speaking from as 2 Cent and as an individual as well. I mean, I had this overwhelming responsibility that every time I create, that I have to create for a purpose and with a strong intention. So after Katrina, we came to the city with that in mind. We came to the city with that as our in our tool belt.
No.
You know, that this is how we were going to be active citizens in this city and helping to rebuild. And so a lot of the first responsive things we did after Katrina was just making video content that exposed some of the things that we saw every day. And so we did pieces about, you know, disaster tourism. We did pieces about just like insurance issues. You know, we were just focusing on what people were saying, some of the racial disparities, the idea of those who were displaced and couldn't get back. You know, we spoke about all of this through the videos that we had, the tools that we had. As a visual artist, it started to become having that same responsibility and looking at spaces in the city, throughout the city, you know, all the blight that was everywhere, you know. I mean, we're almost 10 years out and there's still a significant amount of blight everywhere, but these were areas where it was a constant reminder. You know, you had an entire community trying to rebuild, but there was a space right in the middle where it was a constant reminder every time you drive by that, you know, that there's a lot more work to do. And I wanted to come in there and paint something that was going to change that image. So now you see something that made you proud, you see something that made you feel hopeful, you know, and so that's where like Project B first started, with painting these images on the walls. It was really for like just like a private conversation between the walls and people who lived there, people who would walk by. Some people call it civil rights icons, some people call it, you know, civil rights heroes, but to me it was just painting these narratives from history that I felt I could relate to, that I wanted the people in those neighborhoods to relate to, that when they saw those images that in some way they would see themselves. One thing about it though is a lot of what's created here is created from nothing. It's about that idea of taking nothing to something. And so I think that, and that's always been the beauty of New Orleans. You know, when you look at the food, you look at the art, you look at the music, you look at this magic trick of taking the very little but transforming it into something that's so precious and so beautiful. And so I think one thing that Katrina presented that I was so excited to even be a part of, Katrina presented this opportunity, if you will, to continue to showcase that ability to make nothing into something, to turn something that should be very sad or something that should be very upsetting, but to turn it into something beautiful, you know, to be that phoenix that rises, to be that story of what it means to overcome. That's what projects like Exhibit B demonstrated. That's what, you know, just the culture of the music demonstrated. That's what the culture of just the pushback to say, you know what, that we're here. And mind you, the recovery it has its ups and its downs, but I think overwhelmingly, New Orleans is a story of people who came back and came back loud and strong and very, very beautifully. So the site history, there's a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King that says, almost always the creative, dedicated minority has made the world a better place. And to me, what I get from that sentence is that regardless of what your creativity is, whether you can flex your pencil, your body, your voice, your instrument, your mind, your camera, then you have a responsibility with that to do something to make the world a better place.